Hello, I'm Jonasz Lewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Judges of the European Court of Human Rights delivered 2 judgments against Russia, including on its violations of international law in Ukraine. For the first time since the full-scale invasion in 2022, the court found the Kremlin responsible for human rights violations. At the same time, it was ruled that Russia was also responsible for the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 off of the Donbass on the 17th of July 2014, killing 298 people on board, including 196 Dutch nationals, as the flight was heading from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. Dutch Defense Minister Ruben Brekelmans emphasized that these decisions of the ECHR are an important step towards justice, adding that, and I quote, "The grief of the relatives of the victims of MH17 is enormous, and it is exacerbated by Russia's denials. Now the European Court confirms what we have known for 10 years. Russia is responsible." But let's talk about Malaysia-Russia relations in the wake of the tragedy. While many Western countries have openly condemned Russia, Malaysia has taken a more pragmatic approach. Prime Minister Najib privately reached out to the Kremlin. Russian leader Vladimir Putin, himself under growing international pressure, actually listened. "We mourn with you," he told Najib in a confidential conversation, "and we will cooperate fully to facilitate your team's access to the crash site," he added. Now, this was not just a conversation. Through secret channels and Russian influence on separatist leaders in Donetsk, Malaysia was able to secure what the United States, the Netherlands, and Australia had failed to do: safe passage to the crash site. In the years that followed, the Dutch-led joint investigation team brought criminal charges against individuals associated with pro-Russian forces. Malaysia participated, but always with its own point of view. When Mahathir Mohamad returned to power in 2018, he expressed skepticism. "We need evidence, not assumptions," he said. He criticized the joint investigation team for sidelining the voices of Malaysian lawyers and for overly politicizing the investigation. However, despite these tensions, Malaysia maintained good relations with both the West and Russia, positioning itself as a neutral player. Until 2022, when the world was tending towards a Cold War-like split, Malaysia quietly maintained warm diplomatic and economic ties with Russia. Trade in palm oil, defense technology, and student exchanges grew. Fast forward to the present day. On the sidelines of the ASEAN meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held a bilateral meeting with Malaysian Foreign Minister Mohamad Hassan. They talked student exchanges, nuclear-free zones, and cooperation in general. Hardly any tensions were on display. The downing of MH17 remains one of the greatest tragedies in aviation history. For Malaysia, it was a moment of unspeakable loss. And what do we have now? Malaysia is still building relations with Russia despite all the confirmed facts of its guilt, despite the fact that literally the whole world is screaming about Russia's terrorist activities. Is this turning a blind eye to the problem or just business as usual? If the latter answer is correct, remember the fake that we broke recently when talking about Slovakia. Russian energy may seem cheap, but comes at a geopolitical cost. And the same might just ring true for cooperation with Russia in general, if one isn't extra careful. The Russian propaganda news agency TASS has once again proved that fiction is not just a genre for them, it is a form of art. This time they made an online post-truth short film of, believe it or not, the horror variety. Shot from a surveillance camera, it tells the story about how a crematorium is allegedly operating in the Ternopil region of Ukraine, designed to incinerate the bodies of Ukrainian soldiers to avoid paying compensation to their families. Now, this story could have been nominated for an Oscar or a Golden Raspberry, depending on how you look at it. And there is actually many problems with it. Number one, there is not a single functioning crematorium in Ternopil itself or in the region, not a single one. And there never was. It turns out that in an information war, the main thing is not the truth, but the results that you achieve. Because if you look at this horror movie as a new episode of Black Mirror, even the surveillance cameras are filming something that never happened. Now, as it turned out, the crematorium in this story is not just a fictional location, but also a symbol of how Russian propaganda can burn the truth to ashes and obscure the facts with billowing smoke. This case is a vivid example of how lies are becoming a staple of the Russian media of today. Russia is giving us an X-Files remake that we never asked for, the kind where the smoking man is the good guy, and with Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova starring as Dana Scully. I guess I'll stick with the original then. In a world where the climate is changing, daily life is getting more expensive, and missiles apparently are getting cheaper, Russia has found the main culprit in the demographic crisis. No, it's not war, it's not poverty, it's not climate change either. It is women, apparently. Women who allegedly have become weak and cowardly. Now, this diagnosis was made by Father Andrei Tkachev, the favorite spiritual figure of Russian propaganda attack shows, made popular back when he confessed the word tolerance was anathema to him.
А вот сегодня отсюда родилась наша глупость русская. Дескать, там погибнут одни, бабы других нарожают. Там шапками закидаем, там еще что-нибудь такое. Наступило такое время, когда бабы никого уже не нарожают. Стали дохлые, трусливые, развратные и не хотят рожать. Да и никого мы шапками не закидаем. Если уже шапками закидывать, то Индия с Китаем закидают всех нас, как бы, если даже по полшапки дать им в руку, как бы, вот уж точно нас шапками закидают. А мы нет. Мы исчезаем, мы уменьшаемся в числе, поэтому нам нужно хранить народ свой. То есть есть такая практика народосбережения. То есть надо беречь народ. Беречь народ от наркомании, от гибели за рулем в пьяном виде, беречь народ от алкоголизма, беречь народ от бессмысленных смертей, как это бывает между молодежью. Значит, такой зацеперы всякие там рискуют своей жизнью, гибнут ни за что. Лучше бы на фронт пошел, на фронте бы как солдат погиб с оружием в руках.
According to the priest's logic, a woman who does not want to give birth in a country where infant mortality is soaring, healthcare is in coma, and men are quote-unquote temporarily absent because of the war, is in fact not a woman, but a traitor to her homeland, especially if she also allows herself to, think independently. It is ironic that Father Tkachev, as a representative of an entity whose members are, in principle, not supposed to get actively involved with issues such as intimacy, pregnancy, or childbirth, boldly gives instructions on reproductive behavior of all things. Seriously, demographic crises are not solved by moralizing, by threats, or spiritual wailing of this kind. They are solved when women feel safe, have stability, support, and prospects. And as long as church speakers try to intimidate or shame women for their choice not to give birth if they see their kids would effectively be born into a living hell, they are only plunging the country deeper into that very hell. Okay, maybe this is now me doing the sort of crazy preacher part, but think of it. No freedom of speech, no economic prospects, no indoor plumbing, and the ever-present risk of being spirited away to the Ukrainian front line? Well, doesn't sound like much of a paradise to me. But then again, this is Putin's Russia. Life's not supposed to be great unless you're a chosen oligarch or a member of the FSB. And even then, sometimes the fall from grace is a fall from the window ledge. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.